Arsenal, Arsenal. Welcome to Lee Judges TV. What a great song that is. I tell you what, the actual chorus is great. I don't know about the actual song, but the chorus is unbelievable. Gets me every time. So listen, before we get into the show today, of course, as you know, all well know now that I do a little bit of work for BetVictor and on the Last Man Standing. If you haven't subscribed, get over and subscribe to it. It's a great show and sometimes a little bit controversial. Again, a little bit controversial on this one, Arteta and Conte, who's going to win a trophy first? Well, let me remind you, one already has. But here you go. Check out the clip. We'll have a little chat about it afterwards, and then we'll get into it.
So tell me, who's going to win a trophy next, Arteta or Conte?
If I just looked at the teams on paper and I looked at the managers, I go towards Antonio Conte. But unfortunately for you, Flav, we have to factor in this thing called Tottenham.
Yeah,
and I think
I'm acutely aware of it.
We saw it recently with Real Madrid against Manchester City, and I just think every time Tottenham come to that stage now, there's more pressure added on. Harry Kane's still not won a trophy. Son's still crying somewhere. We know that pressure could probably tell, and like we've said, Arteta's already got a trophy. All those kind of things. So Arsenal probably find it easier to win. But again, on the flip side, and look, this isn't going to happen. But if you were to say who's more likely to win a Champions League or a Premier League at their clubs, I do go Conte, but obviously neither of them are going to win it.
I'll tell you what, Adam. Manchester United ain't going to win it this year, are they? Because they're not in it, you horrible little swine, you know what I mean? But there you go, I'll tell you what, they get on my nerves, all these teams. You know what I mean? Talking about Arteta, talking about who's going to win, a trophy. Just quickly, just going around, lads, before we start. Start with you, Dan. Who do you think is going to win a trophy before? Who's going to win one first? Arsenal or Spurs?
Antonio Conte, probably, because he's a serial winner. That's what I think.
What's that, PSG? That PSG?
Yeah, exactly. And it probably won't be at Tottenham. No, in all seriousness, I do feel like you have to take into consideration, I mean, what Adam's saying there is actually right. I couldn't really disagree with much of what he said in terms of you have to look at Conte, but also you have to look at Spurs being Spursy. So can Conte break the Spursy mould is the question more than who's going to win a trophy first. Actually, Mikel Arteta's already won a trophy. So if you want to go down that road, then obviously we've already got 1-0. So the debate for me is obviously Arteta's already got one. However, if you're looking at who's going to win one next, I would probably put my money on Conte just because he wins something everywhere. But this is Tottenham. So that's what I would say. Tom?
Well, we took over Tottenham with 2 points behind us, and he's taken them to 4 points behind us. So I'm going to go with Mikel Arteta, mate.
Oh, lovely. I love you, Tom. Love you.
Nice. Soph?
I like the fact that I was called lads. So that is already this evening. So I'm winning here. And hopefully Mikel Arteta will be winning. I've been a massive, massive critic, but I've also felt like I've been fair and given him credit where he deserves it. And I could never, ever choose any manager who manages Spurs over an Arsenal manager. So I will stick with Mikel.
Love it. Welcome back to the show, everyone. No need for introductions. You all know everybody. We've got Tom and Sophie joining myself and Lee tonight to look back towards the Leeds game, but also, more importantly, see what that does confidence-wise going into Thursday night against Spurs. One of the biggest North London derbies, everyone is saying. For me, I can think of a couple more that were a little bit more important. I think that somehow shows how far we've fallen, but let's be real, it is a massive, massive fixture, and both teams are going to be wanting to win this game. It's going to be dog v dog, and I believe personally this will be built up and hyped up into a game, and let's hope it's a cracker as far as we're concerned. Let's start with Tom Canton tonight. Welcome back to the show, mate. Hope you're well. Performance against Leeds was a strange one, I'm not going to lie to you, Tom, but there was a part of me that really enjoyed it, and then as soon as the red card happened, all of a sudden Arsenal went into a little bit of laid back mode, I suppose, is the way to look at it. Leeds were threatening towards the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, and it was a little bit of a nervy time for us. But overall, the performance, particularly in the first half, really impressed me, I thought. And particularly, again, some of these players that are coming in, Tom, the Rob Holdings, the El Nenis, the Nketiahs, that everybody thought were perhaps waving goodbye to their futures at Arsenal, were proving why they're a massive part of this squad. So just wanted to get your thoughts on the game at the weekend, mate.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. I think the red card was the worst thing that could have happened to us, to be honest, because this is a Leeds side that had something to fight for. They're in a relegation scrap, and we know that they needed to grab points. But as soon as they took that red card, at that point, their best opportunity was to try and keep the score down, I think, from their perspective. So they sat in more, they wanted to absorb pressure more, and that's not what Arsenal wanted, really. We wanted a more open Leeds that we can get in behind the spaces, but no, there were Leeds that basically said, come on, we're not going to overcommit anymore. We can't really get too much from this game, so we just got to try and keep the score down and hit where we can. And Arsenal don't tend to do well in those scenarios. And actually, it's kind of a good prelude to the Spurs game in a sense, because, Spurs, as we know, are very good on the counter and are going to want Arsenal to overcommit the same way that we kind of ended up doing against Leeds. And that's what gave them the opportunity to get back into the game, where they won that corner and obviously scored from it. So we need to learn our lessons a little bit from Leeds. And maybe it was a little bit of a kick up the backside that we might have needed going into that game. If we'd have won a canter, there was always kind of that threat that maybe we got too comfortable, too overconfident, a little bit maybe arrogant, as you've seen from Arsenal teams in the past. So I don't necessarily mind the fact that that result went the way that it did. I think it gives us a bit of perspective and gives us a bit of reality going into the North London derby. But the first 45 minutes, you said, Dan, was great. We played some great football. I thought Martinelli was brilliant on the left-hand side, which is nice because he's had a couple of quite quiet performances. But, he came to life there. Getting Nketiah on the score sheet ahead of Thursday was really, really important as well. His tenacity has just been such a step up on what Lacazette's, provided in that striker role. I think there was a lot of positive to take from that game, but you're right. We made it a lot harder than we needed it to.
Yeah, we certainly did. So if I want to talk about a few players in particular, and the three players I want to mention again are Rob Holding, El Neni and Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah, a kind of point to prove, not just in the fact that he wants to be doing well in his position at the Arsenal Football Club, but actually what he wants to do is prove to Leeds why perhaps they should have kept him when they got him back and it didn't quite work out for him. And I think he did that certainly in this game, and he has in the last few performances. But I wanted to get your thoughts on why this squad is actually so important to us, and in terms of strength in depth, and perhaps some of the surprises, certainly in my case, when Partey and Tierney looked like they were going to be injured for the rest of the season, things were looking really down for us. I think the players that have come in have done their jobs, albeit Nuno Tavares he's still not quite happy with. So my kind of question to you is, what have you made to Mikel Arteta's changes with the El Neni, Holding and Nketiah situation? And more importantly, the change tactically with Tomiyasu at left back, which for me was a stroke of genius. That has to be said.
I think that one of the things we've always criticised our club about is that with this particular young team, and perhaps from the end of the Wenger era, even with Emery, beyond our starting 11, and especially with this young team, I think, we struggle to have a solid, strong squad. You look at the bench sometimes in some of the games this season, and you can see already whether these players are going to emerge and be part of the squad next season. It's been pretty thin. So with that said, whether you've been pro Mikel Arteta or not, you have to give him credit for making sure that players who are deemed surplus to requirements have come in and been ready to play. I think Rob Holding gets a bit of a tough time sometimes because we expect him to be something that maybe he's not, but maybe he is just a very important squad player who can come in and just do his job. And I think that in the past, we've had players that can't come in and do their job. We've had starters who just don't do their job. We've seen apathy. So to have El Neni ready as well, who seems like the consummate professional, who seems like that silent leader that I think Wenger said that he was a while ago, also just come in and do his job. I think those are really important things, and that points to coaching, that points to preparation, that points to them understanding what their role in this particular side is. Now, with that said, I think when they play well and they come in, there's always been this caveat with Arsenal that they try to sell us something that maybe isn't the answer. Rob Holding isn't the answer to start every game. Is El Neni the answer to start every game? And Eddie Nketiah, I think, is the perfect example of that. I still don't believe he's the long-term solution, but why can't he be the right solution at this time when he is needed? And again, he stepped in. He has a point to prove. He's putting himself in the shop window, isn't he? And I think every Arsenal fan would gladly see him, get a deal at another club, whether he embraces a position to be part of a squad in that he's not going to start every game. I think we know that that's not what he wants as well. But I think he'd have our blessing if he did go on and get a great deal based on these performances that he's been putting in for the Gunners. So you have to give the manager credit, and you also have to give the players credit for embracing their role, coming in and doing a job. And that is part of what being a squad in the Premier League is about. And we're going to have to get used to that, because if we do make Champions League football, or we're in the Europa League, which of course that looks likely should we miss out, we need a squad of players. We're going to be playing in the Premier League, Europe, domestic trophies, and this team isn't quite prepared for that yet. So it's important that we have strong players around whoever that starting 11 is going to be.
Yeah, and Lee, Sophie brings up great points there about some of the credit that has to go to the players, but also to the manager as well. And I'm totally with that. I think the way that everybody was talking about the fact that we've sold Aubameyang, not replaced him, Partey's injured, Kieran Tierney's out. It's like, who's going to actually come in and replace him? Because we haven't really got a squad now. We've got a very, very small, paper-thin squad, but the players that have come in have done great. How much credit do you give to Mikel Arteta for that, Lee? And I have to say it, I thought that Tomiyasu situation was great at the weekend. We've seen Xhaka play there, Tavares come and play there, Cedric play there, Saka play there. But actually, Tomiyasu slotted in very, very nicely, and I thought he was one of the man of the matches. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, listen, for that, you have to give praise for the manager there, because not only did it make us a little bit more defensively sound, I think also Martinelli played a lot better with that as well. I think that, Martinelli's last couple of games have been a little bit poor. I thought he was very, very poor against West Ham. But, maybe because Tavares runs into the space that he's creating or whatever, or trying to create, I don't know, maybe not getting him isolated on the one-on-one situation. Tommy's a good defender, defends, gets the ball, defends, plays it quickly into Martinelli, and then Martinelli's off. What was happening with Tavares? And I'm not having a go at Tavares for this. He'd get the ball and run 20, 25 yards, and then where was Martinelli going from there? So I think that not only was it a good defensive thing, I thought it also freed up Martinelli. So a very, very good decision from Mikel that worked as well, because what happened was Martinelli was breathtaking in that first half when they was down to 10 men. And I've got to say, someone along the line, someone said, well, if we're going to get Champions League, we've got to get somebody that's going to score 5-6 goals to the end of the season. Lacazette was not going to do that. So we needed someone to step up now. We've turned around on this show, and many turned around and said, me being one, you being another one, Dan, everybody's sort of saying it, right, Martinelli's got to go up front. Martinelli's the one that's got to go up front. Or even, Pepe, try Pepe up front and all that. But Mikel trusted Eddie, and to a lot of fans, and myself, I'm going to be included in this as well, saying, what is he doing? You know what I mean? Like, blah, blah, blah. Eddie's proved him right. And, whatever you say about Eddie's performances over the last few games have been really, really good. Not only with his goals, stretching of the defences, which has allowed players Odegaard to play in there, because all of a sudden now we've got pace going in all directions. When we had Lacazette playing, we had pace on the flanks, but not down the middle. We're stretching teams through in the middle now, through wide. No coincidence that Odegaard's playing better now. Obviously, like, people are going to turn around and say, "Okay, right, if we get an upgrade on Eddie, what will be?" Yeah, we need to get somebody like that. But Eddie's proving people wrong all the time, and do you know what? I love it. You know what I mean? I said it the other day. I like being proven wrong, you know what I mean, at the end of it. And I'm being proven wrong by Eddie. I'm being proven wrong by Mikel to a certain degree now, He's just got to get it over the line in these next couple of games. And I don't care what anybody says. Eddie will cause problems against Tottenham because he's got pace. He's got pace. Pace frightens defenders. I don't care what anybody says. The goal against Chelsea, pace got in that goal, that first goal. Defenders making mistakes that they probably wouldn't necessarily make with Lacazette. The goalkeeper, wasn't that bad a touch that he done there, but Eddie's onto him like a flash, bosh goal. So all of a sudden, they're making defenders nervous and that. So big up to Eddie. I think, I've got to say, did I see it coming? Not at all. But this is where you have to have faith in the manager and say, look, he's seeing these players all the time in training and everything like that. And whatever you want to say, he's gambled on him and it's worked at the moment. If we are to get the result on Thursday and we win, you have got to tip your hat. And I've got an hat here, to Mikel Arteta, because at the end of the day, I'm being honest. You'd have to say that he's got it right and got us there. It's not done yet, though, guys. We've got a real tough game on Thursday. Make no mistake. But I've got a lot. Sophie made a point there about Rob Holding and that. Like people criticise Rob Holding because he was the first choice central defender. No one's going to criticise him now being where he's at, because he's actually playing in a role that everybody, I think, feels that he should be playing. And if he wants to play that role and be a crucial member of the squad, and I've Kevin's gone on about it, before. I'll go on it as well. Squad players are very, very important. And people go, "Oh, why do you big up El Nini and people like that?" I'll big them up because I know how difficult a job that is. You know what I mean? To be on the sidelines, attitude mind as well. And when they come in, produce great performances. Now, I'm pretty sure Rob Holding, for instance, played 2 fantastic games, I think, in the last 2 games at West Ham and Leeds. But he'll be sitting there and that team sheet comes out. Ben White will probably be in there. That's a big kick in the old goalies for him. But I tell you what, he'll dust himself down and be ready to play again. That's a great attitude to that. El Neni, has been kicked in the old goalies more than once this season, but dusted himself down, come back strong again. And look at him now, a key member of this Arsenal side, over the next couple of games. And those guys, 3 guys there that would never be in the first team at any stage of our top first 11. El Neni, Eddie and Rob Holding. That's a spine that we would all say, no, we need to improve that spine. But them 3 there, if they haven't put in the performances that they have done, we wouldn't be where we are now.
I think well said, judges. Tom, let's come to you on this final point. Rumours today that Mohamed El Neni is signing a new deal at Arsenal. Out of Holding, El Neni and Eddie, are you expecting all 3 of them to still be in an Arsenal shirt come the summer? And do you think it would be deserved if that is the case?
If you'd have asked me that question
a
month ago, I would have said, Holding's the only one that I'm expecting to stay out of the 3. Because, he signed a new contract last month and he seems pretty content himself being a player that is amongst the centre-backs that are available. So I would have said, he's probably going to stay. But you fast forward to today and, Eddie Nketiah, the club are very, very intent on trying to keep him. A contract offer has been on the table for quite some time. I think I saw some news dropping just before we went live that there's been, even more renewed efforts to try and convince him to stay. My issue with that decision is that how it affects our transfer business. Because, keeping Eddie Nketiah is still a big gamble for Arsenal to take, especially considering kind of the level that we want to go to, which is, you would hope, back into the Champions League and then take that next step, which is trying to close the gap to Manchester City and Liverpool and competing with those guys. Do I see what I've seen the last 4 games, a player in Eddie Nketiah that's going to help Arsenal get to that level? Not as our starter. And I think, he's done very well in these games, but it's not the performances of, a top class striker. It's the performances of someone that is very, very motivated right now, that is giving their full tilt, full time, full energy. And that isn't going to get Arsenal to that next level. Now, if he does that across a whole season and puts in, 15 to 20 Premier League goals, then I've got more evidence to go off the back on. But I only have these real 4 games of a run to make my opinion, and obviously the cameos that we've seen from him. If it's a case of Arsenal are still going to go out there and bring in 2 top-class forwards and we're going to renew his contract, fine. We send Balogun out on loan for another full season to a low Premier League club to get some experience. Nketiah stays for a year, he might get annoyed and not get the chances. And hey, we've got a kid with 2 years left on his deal and actually can make a profit on Eddie Nketiah next summer, which is fine. But if him staying means that we don't go out and sign the necessary quality that we need to in the summer to take that next step, then I've got a problem with that. So I think that's the Nketiah situation for me. The El Neni one, I think is different because, you know, he plays in a position that we already have plenty of players in. Yes, we need to strengthen in central midfield, but it's not the same scenario. No, if we don't sign anyone at striker, we have literally Balogun next season. Whereas, you know, next season in midfield, we've got Partey and Xhaka and Lokonga. You've got players coming through the youth ranks that are knocking on the door as well, like Charlie Patino, etc. So Neni staying when we've got another competition to play in next season, I think is fine. And I think you've seen those performances in these last 4 games really step up from him and show what he's capable of putting in when we call upon him. So I've got no issue with him getting even the 3 years, which is what it supposedly is. I've got no issue with that at all, to be honest, because he's happy playing that role. You go back through all the successful Arsenal sides, from your Invincibles, you know, to the 89 team, to the 71 side. There were players in those squads that didn't get many minutes, but were valuable when they were called upon. And El Neni is, you know, someone who can do that, someone who can play that role for us. And I think has done that very, very well. In fact, if you look at some of the stats from his game against Leeds, it compares very similarly to man of the match performance from Partey against Villa. It kind of shows you kind of the level of performance he's putting in. So I'm fine with that. But again, like I said, with Nketiah, it is predicated on the fact that we need to make sure that we go out and sign a top-class central midfielder still if we are keeping it. And I think that's the crucial part of this. It's the guarantees of the transfers around them.
See, this is why I'm with you 100%, Tom, because are the 3 of them good enough to play in the first 11 for Arsenal moving forward? Probably not. Are the 3 of them good enough to be part of a 25-man squad next season? I think the answer is probably yes. The question is, are they happy to be that bit part player? I think Rob Holding has made it quite clear that he is, because he signed a contract and he's never really been a first-team defender. Mohamed El Neni, what I love about this guy is the fact that he's a really honest player. He's never tried to be a Mesut Ozil or a Cesc Fabregas. He's never said that he was. He's always come in as a £7 million player. And when you look at the last 5-6 years he's been here, I think we've got more than enough of 7 million back in value. So when you look at what Mohamed El Neni's brought into the team this season, actually he could be vital for us going for a Champions League space. So I would be absolutely fine if we was going to be signing him as a backup or as a squad player, because I think that's what he's always been. Eddie Nketiah, my question mark is, what does he want? Does he want to go and play first team football? And if the answer is yes, it's not going to be at Arsenal. He might have to go lower division. He might have to go to a Premier League side that's just come up or that's in and around the relegation zone, because I actually don't think there's going to be many clubs after him. The only good thing about Eddie that's
the one we know of, that West Ham really are after him right now.
Tom, West Ham are after every single striker known to man, though. So.
Yeah, they are.
But you're right, they are, right, from what I hear. I spoke to Lawless today and he said that they were after him. So my point is Eddie going to want to play first team football? If the answer is yes, it's probably going to be away from Arsenal. But the other 2, I think, will be here next season. Soph, let's come to you. Martinelli, a player me and you like, a player Lee really likes, and I'm sure Tom likes as well, to be fair. I thought he was immense at the weekend. Surely he's favourite now to be playing in the North London derby, or does Mikel Arteta change things and bring back Emil Smith-Rowe for you?
It's a really good question, and I asked Kev last night because Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe was so electric in that first North London derby, where we absolutely came thick and fast at Tottenham, beat them in that first half. The 2 of them, it was the game where everyone kind of, I think, really, they were already in love with them, but they super fell in love with them after that. For 2 Haaland boys to do that against the Tottenham team that has been lauded for the last 4 or 5 seasons was immense. And I think it was a massive moment for them. I think Mikel sticks with the players that he trusts. He trusts them both. And we've seen him kind of flip them out in particular games. I think the game at the weekend kind of solidified, again, that not only is he sensational going forward, but what he does off the ball, I think, is better at this stage than what Emil Smith-Rowe does off the ball. I think that's where Smith-Rowe has to improve his game a little bit. I think he needs to be a little bit more robust when he's tracking back. So I think for this particular North London derby, you start with Martinelli and you you can bring Emil Smith Rowe as a potential game changer should we need that. And you did ask about Tomiyasu, and we've seen again, the versatility of him and also the versatility of Martinelli. He's been asked to play on that side with a couple of different players this season as well. And yes, he's been a little bit quiet, but I also think he's the type of player that we expect so much from him, because I don't think since Alexis Sanchez have we had a player who gets you off your feet. And Martinelli certainly gets you off your feet. But when he's not getting you off your feet, I still think he helps the team when he's tracking back and when he's asked to support his teammates, in defense. So for me, Martinelli starts because I think he's a little bit more of an elevated player at this point than Smith Rowe. And I think that sometimes it goes unnoticed what he does when he's not kind of having that insanely sexy going forward kind of game.
I think it's fair, Soph. And Lee, I wanted to bring you in on this point because a lot of people were discussing yesterday with me about Martinelli's output. Smith Rowe and Saka, I think, have both got double figures this season. Martinelli's got 1 goal in his last 10 games, last goal being against Watford. His performance against Leeds was great, but he did miss a couple of chances. He needs to be putting more in the net for me now, and I think that's his next kind of challenge, so to speak. Do you think he deserves to start in the North London derby, and do you have the faith that he's going to start to get goals for the Arsenal?
I wouldn't say that he deserves to start just on one performance against Leeds. I think that I also sometimes think it's horses for courses. I like the way we set up against Chelsea when we let Eddie run riot for 70 minutes, and then when the team got tired, bringing on Martinelli to wear them down even more is a tactic that they could use, because I think in the last 20 minutes, if it's level or we're winning, Tottenham are going to have to go storming forward. Now, what do you want on there? A fast, fresh forward. So I think there's food for thought there that could be a thing to use, and bring in Smith Rowe to keep the ball, control the game a little bit better, and things like that. So I do think that sometimes it's not just playing your best players. Sometimes it's horses for courses, and maybe like going down a different route. For me, I would play Martinelli and take it to him to a certain degree. Not take it to him. I would say, right, we're going to keep tight at the back with a back four in midfield and just let the three up front do their stuff. And the one thing that worries me about Martinelli is that I watched him on Sunday. I thought he was fantastic, but he got cramped up. And I think in the last 20 minutes of the game, I want him to be available. I want him to be sharp as whatever. So it may be the case of just giving him a rest and going with him at the end. I don't know. It's a big decision. It's a big call. But it would be something that I would be thinking on the lines of, that maybe go down that route. And at the end of it, if you play Martinelli or you play Smith Rowe, I don't think it weakens our team in any shape or form. I think that Martinelli gives you something different. If Martinelli plays like he did on Sunday, you'd be playing every week, but he's not quite at that level yet. And I do agree with you. He missed a couple of good chances, but that will come. We're not seeing the finished article of Martinelli by a long chalk. I do think that this game, because of those 3-4 points that we've got in front, at some stage that's going to help us. I.e., if we're winning. Tottenham have got to throw the kitchen sink at us. Now, if they do that, they're going to have to take lots and lots of risks. Who would you rather have on the pitch in the last 20, 25 minutes? A sharp, fit Martinelli or a tired Martinelli? And I think that's the scenario I think that Mikel's got there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Smith Rowe starts in this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, won't it? Judges, I want to stay with you just quickly because I'm going to come to Tom and Soph after. I'm going to move on towards Thursday night now. Would you change much for this game in terms of our shape, in terms of our formation? Do we have to be wary of Conte's tactics? How do you see this one, and how do you think Mikel Arteta will be thinking going into this game? Because it's massive.
For me, I think that we try and play as natural game as we possibly can with caution. Now, that doesn't mean sitting back and letting things happen. I think at the end of the day, just be a bit more cautious. Play our football, but be cautious at the back and don't let... Tom made a great point, like, against Leeds, sometimes we got overloaded. I think it's just natural that we play like that, but somewhere along the line, look, do not let them hit us on the break. I'll be very, very disappointed if we get done on the counter-attack in this game, because there's no need for us to be done on the counter-attack. Let them, if they're going to score, Tottenham, let them... earn it. Let them try and work out a way of breaking us down, which they struggle with. So, I think that's the way that we've got to go. First 20 minutes of this game is going to be key, and I tell you why it's going to be key, because the crowd's going to be right up for it. They're going to be buzzing for it, and we've got to get over that first 20-25 minutes, and then just start playing our football. What Arsenal do really well under Mikel Arteta is we do get the ball and we control the tempo of the game, and we do that very, very well. Even on Sunday, we was quick and fast at one stage, and then in the next 20 minutes or so, we're just keeping the ball, knocking it about, waiting for an opportunity, and that's what I think we've got to do, is just wait for an opportunity. At the end of the day, we do not have to go chasing this game. We don't. They do, but I don't want us to get into the situation or the scenario of where we don't know what we've got to do. The facts are, when you say, you're 2-0 up or you're 3-0 up in a European game, do you go for it or don't you, and all that? Let's get this plain and simple and get this clear. We win this game, we get Champions League. That is a scenario. That is what we're playing for. That is what we need. So go out there to get the win, but don't go guns blazing for it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of it, if we pick up a draw, it's not the end of the world. But if we can say, I'm telling you this now, 10 minutes to go in that game, if we're 1-1 and 2 or 1-0 up or something like that, we are in the box seat to go on and nick it, because they're going to have to throw everything at it.
Fair play. Totally agree. Tom, let's come to you. Tottenham against Liverpool was an interesting watch for me. Liverpool were knocking on the door. Tottenham set up exactly how I expected. And in their defence, defended very, very well. A typical Antonio Conte performance, who just seems to know how to take points off of teams like Manchester City and Liverpool. And this season we've seen that. I'm not too sure, Tom, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, that we're going to see that style of play completely against us, because we're a completely different outfit to Liverpool. But I wanted to get your thoughts on their kind of setup and what you thought they were going to do moving forward.
It's interesting, actually, because if you think to the last 2 times we've gone there in the league, we fell into the Spurs trap both times. We overcommitted, we over-attacked, and we were hit on the counter. And we've conceded 4 goals because of that across those 2 games. So I actually do kind of expect Conte to, allow Arsenal to have more of the ball, to allow their build-up play, to open and stretch the spaces between our midfield and our forward line and the fullbacks as well, and look to hit us as much as possible on the counter. The difference this time around is that they've got Kulusevski on the right-hand side, who is, adds a lot more quality to their right. What they don't have is a quality right wing back, because Doherty's not quality, but he's out for the season, which means Emerson is going to have to start, and he's definitely an area of weakness for them defensively. So our left hand side is going to be key, and it's interesting listening to you guys talk about Martinelli and Smith Rowe, and I get the argument about Smith Rowe, but I think Martinelli would have Emerson's number a lot more than maybe Smith Rowe might. I think you saw him take on the Leeds backline brilliantly in the last game, and I think that seeing him get beyond Emerson is a real possibility. He's then got to get past Romero, which is a completely different challenge. And, he's been very good this season. But, yeah, I think Spurs will still set up kind of how they set up against Liverpool, obviously with more of an intention to attack, because they've got to try and win this game. But I think that Conte will be banking on the same naivety that has seen Arteta lose both away games in the last one. What I want to see from Arsenal is a back 4 of White, Holding, Gabriel and Tomiyasu as the back 4. I want Ben White in over Cedric. He's played well at right back in the opportunities that he's had there, in my view. And I think that having White and Tomiyasu as those 2 fullbacks discourages us from overcommitting in an attacking sense as well. And it means that we can kind of have that strong foundation. You've got El Neni and Xhaka in front of them. And then you just let Ødegaard, Saka, Martinelli or Smith Rowe and Nketiah do their business. And if we catch them on the break, great. But we aren't going to get caught on the break if you play, your fullbacks in a more reserved fashion, and then you've got, the double ups on both Son and Kulusevski on the other side, and you've got Holding and Gabriel trying to deal with Kane as much as possible. So that's probably the way I'd go about it.
Yeah, you make great points there, Tom. I must admit that is a spot on analysis in how it should go. So let's see. Let's see if you're right and
So
see
we
if
won't
it
do
goes
that.
that way. Yeah.
No, it's a great. I'll tell you what, it's a great point, because what it does, it still gives us the stability of a good back four, right? It also gives us a good stability of heading in the side, because Tomiyasu can head, so can Ben White, so can Rob Holding, and so can Gabriel. So the ball's going over the top, we may be able to stop. And I think there's a great point you make there, Tom, is that, naturally, none of them are going to go forward too much. Get their main objective would be get the ball, play it to Saka, get the ball, play it to Martinelli, and then, get back into defensive shape. So that could be something that he'd do. And if he does do that, Tom, I'm going to give you a big clap for that, because that is a good thing to keep yourself solid, but still have that defensive structure.
You're in for a treat there, Tom. You get a big clap from Lee Judges. That is
I've been dreaming of that.
what a treat.
What
a treat. Sophie, let's come to you. What are your thoughts on Thursday in terms of setup and analysis tactically between Mikel Arteta and Antonio Conte, mate?
Well, Conte is the more experienced manager, but I think as the season has gone on, Mikel Arteta has proven that he's willing to take risks, and sometimes his risks have paid off. The Tomiyasu move, of course, is a great example of a risk paying off. Xhaka at left back is another great example of an unnecessary risk that he's tried before that did not work. He's still learning and honing in on his craft. But I think he's also shown that, he's able, and this team is up for the task. Spurs could go Spursy, and Arsenal have proven against Palace, Brighton and Southampton that we could.
Have we lost her?
Oh, she's frozen. Can you believe
But
it? Oh, no, she's back.
Seems like
She's back. We lost you, Soph, there for about 10 seconds. So rewind about 10 seconds.
Okay, I will. I'm in Cyprus, by the way, you guys, and my dad's dial-up internet is not the best. I tried to put some euros in it earlier, and hopefully, it will hold.
It won't.
For a little bit longer. But no, what I was going to say was that there's something that's clicked with this team, that despite those losses against Palace and Brighton and Southampton, they have a belief.
It's gone.
Yeah, we're losing. Yes, sorry. This is
Sophie, come out and come in again. I was trying so hard to stick with her, but it's got to be a come out and coming in again job. Sophie, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
No, if you come out and come in again, it might be better for you, because we've completely lost you, I'm afraid.
My
Come out and come in again.
So annoying, because Sophie makes so many good points as well.
Oh, no, I was really looking forward to that, because I know she's a big lover of Conte as well, so that was going to be quite good. But we will get her back. We will get her back. My thoughts of this game. I think it's quite clear to see or to know how Antonio Conte is going to set up. However, what I don't feel, and I still stand by, is when you look at how they were against Liverpool, they had a game plan because they knew that Liverpool were going to be attack. I'm not so sure that Arsenal are always attack. And somebody made a good point today, I think it was, can't remember who it was now, I think it was Dan Lawless actually I was speaking to. He said some Arsenal or Arteta haters call him tapas pulis, which doesn't mean that he's attack. So actually it could work against Antonio Conte. And Arsenal, and I don't want to say this too loud because it might jinx it, but actually Arsenal's record against Conte isn't so bad. So it might be that we see a little bit of difference to Tottenham's play. Having said that, I don't know that Antonio Conte has much of a plan A, plan B or plan C type coach. I think he knows what he wants, knows what he gets, and most of the time he does get it. With Tottenham this season, we've seen at times them get it wrong. And how Conte reacts to that has normally been a win after that. Now, I think personally they did really well against Liverpool, and I was quite impressed by the way they defended and the way they set up. And let's be honest, guys, they actually had some chances in that game to take a couple of goals. So it was actually quite good that we walked off with them dropping points, because it would have been a completely different story had they had turned Liverpool over. The confidence would have been massive. So, Tom, I'll come to you, then go back to judges. If we look at some of your points you made there and some of the key battles in this game, do you have the confidence that, albeit some of Tottenham's threats are obvious, Kane, Son, even Kulusevski, who's been good, Bentancur, Romero, do you feel that on paper we will have as much threat as they will in terms of in front of goal? Because a lot of people talk about Kane and Son being lethal. They've scored, I think, along with Liverpool, the most goals in 2022. However, we have defensively been a little bit better this season, albeit of late we've had a few injuries, so our clean sheets haven't been that many. Do you feel, however, Arsenal have still got enough in this game to score some goals? Because that's going to be the key for me, is how many can Arsenal score in this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've seen we've scored 3 against Man United. We scored 4 at Chelsea. And I know that some of those goals are a bit fortuitous, sure. But, we still got them in the back of the net in some really difficult fixtures. Not many teams go to West Ham and get, come away with 3 points and score twice. So those moments, like the West Ham game where we've scored from 2 set pieces, when we get a set piece, we're dangerous, and Spurs are going to have nervy moments. Now, I don't know how good Spurs' record is from set pieces, but our record from them is pretty darn good, and defending them, besides that one against Leeds, has been also very, very good. So, yeah, there are threats from Arsenal, and I think that you look across this season, if we go back to kind of the analysis and the tactics of the game, if you allow Spurs to do what they do best, then you get punished. And it's as simple as that. If we mitigate their strengths, which is by not opening up spaces of our own midfield and defence and remaining disciplined and keeping our structure and shape as much as possible, not overcommitting, it will limit what they're able to do more effectively. Arsenal have got the luxury, if you want to call it that, of not having the expectation on them this game. Spurs cannot lose. They cannot afford to lose this game if they want any hope of getting into the top 4. Whereas for us, we're in a position where, whilst we don't want to lose, our season certainly isn't done, and certainly, we've got still a great chance with the top 4 still in our own hands if we lose. And so for that reason, because Spurs have got the pressure on them to make sure that they either take a point or, try and win the game, that pressure, that added worry and panic, maybe when Arsenal are on the attack. Because if we get an early goal, if, we nick a goal in the first half and we go ahead, Arsenal's record when we take the lead is very, very good. On the counter of that, if we concede first, our record is pretty darn poor at trying to turn results around. I think the Wolves is the only game we've managed to turn from a losing position into a winning position all season. So it's quite... Once the first goal goes in, it should be pretty comfortable to be able to predict the way that the game's going to go for both sides. If Arsenal get that win, they have no need to overcommit at all. They don't have any reason to overcommit anyway. But, if we do get that goal, there's no excuses. We don't need to push everyone forwards, and we can try and hit on the counter when possible. And Spurs are pretty poor at trying to break teams down. And that's why they dropped points against Burnley and Brighton and Brentford so far this season. So we just need to play the game that we know we can. We need to play on the atmosphere, play on the nerves of Spurs, play on the expectation that they'll have to try and nick a win in this game as much as possible, and just not be naive. And thankfully, we've not seen too much naivety of late from Arsenal. So hopefully that goes our way.
Absolutely. Sophie, if you are back and you can hear us, how are we going to win this game against Antonio Conte Spurs, in your opinion?
Well, you said something about us having, good results against Conte, and this is true. And I think that's something that Mikel's going to take, into the preparation. What I was saying earlier before the Cypriot Daleks attacked me is that somehow, some way, Mikel Arteta has this team confident and believing they can still achieve this goal that seemed insurmountable for us at the start of the season. You lose in the fashion we did to Palace and Brighton and Southampton. You come back and you beat Chelsea, you beat Manchester United, you beat West Ham, and you beat a resurgent Leeds under Jesse March, albeit they weren't that great at the Emirates at the weekend. You know, we still had to beat a team that's fighting for Premier League survival. And those games aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination. So somehow he still has them thinking that they can achieve this goal. And I think that is quite incredible for the youngest team in the Premier League to have bounced back after those losses where we all felt the sky was falling. Pundits thought the same, media thought the same. And I truly believe that if we achieve this goal, it is one of, if Klopp doesn't win the quadruple, if he doesn't win the treble, I think if Mikel Arteta ends up finishing fourth, he's got to be in the conversation. And yes, this is coming out of my mouth as manager of the season.
Oh, I'm loving this. I am loving this.
Stick with me, Dan. This is why I always feel like when people come at me and say I've been a hater or I'm a flip-flopper or I'm all these things, it's like, no, I've called things as I've seen them, game by game. I try not to look too far ahead into the future because, you know, I don't have a crystal football. I don't know. I just say what I see now. When you do a show, you talk about the game that you see now. You look a little ahead, yes. But there's been a lot to not believe in at many times during his tenure. Eighth gets us kicked out of Europe for the first time in 20 years, loses a semi-final to the man that he replaced. I felt there was a lot to criticize. Now, some people can say, well, I saw that he was going to be great. I didn't see that he was going to be great. I thought he had the potential to be, but I also felt like he sometimes acted with a certain arrogance that he hadn't earned yet. But if he beats Conte to fourth, Manchester United, you know, West Ham, who have been darlings of the media as well over the last, 18 months, you've got to say that it is probably one of the best achievements in recent times of any Arsenal manager. And we have come under fire. We've been the dartboard. He's been the dartboard. He's been criticised. I've got 25 humble pies baking in the oven. I'm willing to eat every single one, lick my fingers, and have whipped cream on top if it means the Arsenal Football Club get back into Europe and we're able to strengthen the side, invest in the side, bring in better players, bring in better quality, bring in a couple of world-class players as well, and rebuild this team. So I'm ready for the celebration should it happen. I'm confident that we will win this game, actually. I had more fear about the Newcastle game. I think we go into this game with a cocky arrogance that is measured. The only player who I'm worried about being too cocky sometimes is Ramsdale. I think he needs to rein it in just a little bit, as much as I love him, right? So while I have internet and my dad's put in a couple more euros for me, I fancy us in this game.
Wow. I love the confidence. I do love the confidence. And do you know what, Sophie? I'm glad you're back and no longer a Dalek because it's a nice segue into the final segment of this.
How are you feeling, Dan? We haven't heard about you.
Trust me, we'll get there. We'll get there. This is the final segment, mate, and I will have my say.
Can I just add, Dan? Someone said that we're locked in for Europa League. Yeah, that's great. I'm all for that. I said, finishing fifth is a good thing. There's a difference between, yes, we attracted Aubameyang and Lacazette and Partey and Tierney and Gabriel with Europa League football. If we want to crank it up a notch, I think the Champions League is just that level that gives us, or would have given us, a Vlahovic, would have given us an X or a Y or a Z type of player that just is a little bit more elevated. So as happy as I am to be back in Europe, to be in the Champions League, that's just a totally different edge when it comes to the marketplace in the summer and the type of player that we can attract.
Fair enough, Soph. That's your opinions. My opinions differ slightly. I think it has to be Champions League from this point. Lee, let's come to you. I'm going to ask you all this, okay? So for the last 10, 15 minutes now. Going to ask you all this. I'm going to have my say as well. Judge, let's start with you. If we win, we all know what happens. If we lose, it goes to the last 2 games. If we come to the end of the season and we're not in the Champions League, my question is, what does that mean? If we get to the season and we are in the Champions League, whether that means we beat Spurs or we don't, and we lose and we beat Newcastle and Everton, whatever it be, what does that mean to you? So if we make Champions League, if we don't make Champions League, we all know he's staying because he's signed the contract. But what does it mean for our season as to how good a job Mikel Arteta has done just by coming 4th or just by missing out on 5th for you?
Well, listen, at the beginning of the season, I would have took 5th. I'll be honest with you. I felt that's where we would end up. I did say that that's where I expect us to end up. At this moment in time, if we weren't to get top 4 now and now, it's a foul. You know what I mean? From the position that we're in, it's a foul. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it going to hurt? Bloody sure it is. You know what I mean? Because it's against Spurs. Of course it is. We go into the Spurs game in a position that I never thought that we'd be in 2 weeks ago. Didn't think we'd be in it like, you know what I mean? I thought like the chances are we'd be going into this game a point behind, 2 points behind, or even level at best. We're not in that position now, like, you know. We have got a chance to get Champions League. And we've got 2 bites at the cherry. So if you foul with 2 bites of the cherry, if you don't get that, it's a foul. Simple as that, like. But, you know, at the end of the day, is it the end of the world? No. Does it mean that Champions League is devastation and all that? No. Manchester United come second last season. Are they in the Champions League this year? No. So it doesn't mean to say that you're going to get in the Champions League. You're going to be in it for the next couple of years. You've got to get in it, and you've got to earn it. There's a lot more hard work coming if you get there. So for me, listen, I think that we will get it now. I believe that last weekend was pivotal. I think if you're going into a game against Tottenham Hotspur away with a 4-point buffer, I'm taking it and biting your hand off for it. Like, you know what I mean? People turn around and say, oh, we should have played them in January and all that. Like, no, you know what I mean? We wasn't in that position to do that now. We're in a better position to take on Tottenham now, and we've got a 4-point gap. We've got I think, you know, you go there and you do not lose this game. And I think that this should be a lot of pressure on Mikel. I'm going to be really honest. If Mikel fails from here, next season we'll have a repercussion on next season, because if he gets off to a bad start, people are going to lose faith in him very, very quickly. You know, so I think it's very, very important now for the longevity of how he's going to be, because I forget about contracts and all that. If he was to fail now and not get Champions League and then lose 3 or 4 games next season, the fans are going to be restless, me being one of them, like, you know, because that's not what we want. So for me, get this job done now, get it over the line. I think that he will. He will do it, and then we push on next season. But whatever way you look at it, he's done very, very well to get us into the position that we have. But I do see it now as a failure if we don't get Champions League. I can't help that now. If you've got 3 games left, you're 4 points in front of your nearest rivals. You've got to see it through.
Yeah, I couldn't really say much better than myself, judges, if I'm honest. I totally agree with everything you've said. Sophie, let's come to you next before we probably lose you to your Dalek again, and then I'll come to Tom. You said that Europa League is pretty much a season that you thought would be acceptable. You've made it quite clear that you think Europe is massively key. So if we manage to not do this, how does that leave you feeling? If we manage to do it, how does it leave you feeling? Your thoughts, mate?
Well, of course, it's going to be disappointing if we don't close the deal at this point. You know, one of my favourite movies, Glengarry Glen Ross, always be closing. And Arsenal, for this team to emerge and this team to evolve, it would be such a confidence booster and such a cultural change for us, considering we've had massive failures over the last few years as well. Albeit said that we've been a very good FA Cup team. But for us to close this deal and be able to see this through, I think is massive for the evolution of the DNA and the profile of the players, for this culture change that Edu and Mikel Arteta have tried to infuse into the club. for the owners to then have their backs be put against the wall, to really put their money where their mouth is and show that they do want to invest. You get Champions League football, okay. You've been saying a lot of stuff in the fan forums. You've been saying a lot of stuff this season. Edu did that interview with Sky Sports where he said, we're starting with youth and then we're going to build this team with world-class players. The pressure will then be on them. I think Mikel will still be under intense pressure, but I think the pressure shifts to the ownership and the people who are running the club to back him. Now, there's a lot of questions about Conte and Tottenham and if Levy's going to back him this season and will he stay? Is he going to PSG? But I also think that, for us, if we do close the deal, the onus shifts back to the owners, in my opinion. And Mikel's going to have to deliver as well and continue to deliver. But we've seen that, he's reached his goal. They've rewarded him for it. Now, if he supersedes that goal, what are they going to do to support him? Because this squad is thin. We've seen it. I said it at the top of the show. We need depth. We need, 2 strikers. We need cover at left back. You could argue we'd need a right back, a centre back, another midfielder. Like, there is still this process that is going to be ongoing. But will it be disappointing as a fan? Of course. Am I going to lose my mind? I don't think so. Because like I said, you sign Aubameyang, you sign Lacazette, you sign Partey, you sign Tierney with Europa League football. I think the Europa League has elevated for sure over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And you still have your hat in the ring to be able to win a European trophy, which we haven't done since Mr. Super Kevin Campbell was playing. So I think that I wasn't expecting Europe this season. So for those reasons, I'm not going to be massively gutted if we don't make the Champions League. But of course, I'm going to be a bit bummed about it. But I think if we missed out altogether, Dan, that'd be a totally different conversation. By the way, I just saw someone say, did Super Kevin Campbell leave your show? No, he didn't. I think he told a story on Curtis Shaw TV that people misinterpreted. So there you go.
There we go. Kev is very much part of the hybrid squad and, of course, Lee Judges TV, but he's very busy at the moment, so it's hard to get hold of him. So let's, before I come to Tom, come to a couple of comments which have come in. One is from Dave, a super chat, says, Arteta picked us up in 11th and then finished 8th and won an FA Cup. How is that first season seen negatively? Arteta is a better coach than Conte already. Wow, okay, huge statement that is, in my opinion. I disagree wholeheartedly, but you are entitled to your opinion. We do have some doubts still and some concerns from Will Hooper. Arteta as a coach is top tier. You don't coach Man City for 3 years if you're not good, but he isn't a good manager for a club of our size. Nothing against him, but we won't compete with him. Tom, a lot of people still sitting on the fence, some really not liking the manager, some loving what he's doing at the moment. I'd love to hear your opinions, as a similar question to Lee and Sophie, about what we've achieved already this season and what it would mean to you if we did get Champions League under Mikel Arteta.
We've achieved what I expected us to at this point. I think we had the 5th best squad in the league, and the lowest we can finish this season is 5th. So in that sense, at this point, if the season was to finish today, we'd all be very happy with finishing in 4th place. But I don't want to settle for 5th. I want us to push I want us to push for 3rd, to be honest. I think what an achievement that would be if we finish 3rd this season, because Chelsea don't look like they're firing on all cylinders, and they've got an FA Cup final at the weekend. If they lose, and then they've got 2 more games this season with having lost that final to Liverpool, you can really see the dressing room mentality just on the floor at that point, especially considering all the amount of points they've dropped so far. So I don't want to see us winning against Spurs and going, great, we've guaranteed Champions League football for next season. No, we've got 2 more games left after that. I don't want it to drop. I want us to push towards getting 3rd place this season, because it's very, very possible. On the worst case scenario side of things, if we miss out on Champions League football, I don't look at it as a failure myself, because, as I've mentioned, I thought the expectation for this season was always 5th. I've said that throughout the entire campaign, that 5th was always kind of where I've looked at as what I thought we were capable of achieving with the current squads compared to our rivals. And, we've guaranteed that for ourselves. However, I, unlike Sophie, would be very gutted. Yeah, absolutely gutted. Yeah, to miss out on this opportunity to get Champions League because of the potential for it to accelerate what the club see as kind of the journey that we're on back to where they want to get us. It could, I don't think the club were looking at this summer upcoming as a summer where we'd be planning for a Champions League season. I think they were looking at as a season where we were planning to try and create a squad that could compete better on all fronts with probably Europa League football. So the fact it would be Champions League football opening up numerous other opportunities for us in the market could be absolutely brilliant. I mean, you see the players that we're being linked with, I don't think the likes of Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling would have been linked to Arsenal had we have, finished looked like we were finishing in the Europa League next season. And the thing is, what we've always wanted from this Arsenal team when we sign players, in my mind, is to go, do they get into City's team? Do they get into Liverpool's team? And if they don't, what's the thought process behind us signing that player? And if the answer isn't, well, they're a young prodigy that's got potential to one day be of that level, then I would question why we're signing them. So when you do see us getting linked to Gabriel Jesus, who's, banging in goals for Manchester City at the moment, that gives me a lot of encouragement that we're looking at the right players in the market, that we're trying to target players that do close the gap between us and City, because that's the next step, that we can't finish fourth and then look at the season and go, right, next season, fourth is the target. No, whilst I would look at fourth as the minimum expectation next season, the target has to be to push forwards. The target has to be to progress. And at the point that we're not progressing, that's when we start asking questions again and we start saying, are we going in the right direction? Are the right decisions being made? But at the moment, I'm very happy with the direction that we're going and I think it's leading us in the right path. But I'm very excited to see what the summer brings. But yeah, I wouldn't call it failure if we don't get top four, but I would call it a massive, massive disappointment.
You know why it would be massive disappointment and it would be gut-wrenching is because we'd lose it to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is the spice, right? This is what is going to be like the gut punch is if we miss out and we miss out to them. That's the tough pill to swallow. But yeah, I mean, the goal for Europe was reached. It's done, but now we've got that extra mile to go. So hopefully we don't miss out to them.
I think I'll be very honest as well, coming from the perspective, it's been a long season for people like that we're producing content every week, and we come at it from a perspective where our opinions are put out there all the time on different channels. And from the perspective of someone that has defended Mikel Arteta for a lot of the campaign, and in previous seasons where, probably skewed away from what was, sensible at times. And I know I've had long chats with Sophie about kind of Arteta at times where I look back and go, he really was making some silly choices back then. But, the vindication for Arteta's decisions this season, if he gets fourth, would be huge. The vindication of the choices that he's made in the market in 2021, the vindication of the club to, stick by him when I and a lot of other people after Villarreal really wanted him gone at that point, really wanted to see us change because they thought, no, this isn't going in the right direction. That vindication, I think, is going to be huge for the momentum of the team and the players as well. And so that's going to be crucial. I like the way in which we've approached the season. I think the idea that we've only played one game a week is something that's blown out of proportion as well. If we didn't have one game a week, if we knew at the start of the season we had Europe, we would have planned for the season differently. But they created a squad that was designed to push us as far as we could in the competitions we were going to tackle this season. And I'm looking forward to a season next year where we're going to have a squad, hopefully, that can compete on not just 3, but 4 fronts.
I think it's fair. Somebody who does make me laugh, as always, is a good friend of the show, Gunnar Russ, who's looking at things positively as he always does. Champions League means dearer season tickets, not great players coming in. That is typical Russ, isn't it? What an absolute legend he is. You got to love Gunnar Russ.
That's guaranteed because prices are going to go up if we get Champions League. We've already said that,
100%. A lot of people want to know where I'm at, so I'll tell you where I'm at. When this manager came into the club, the reason I had my concerns was because of his inexperience. On top of that, there was inexperience all around him, not just on the pitch, but up in board level. And of course, Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke, who are not experienced football men, whether you love or hate them. So I thought to myself, what we really need is an experienced team or an experienced coach. And if we have one of them, we might be okay. To have neither was a massive issue for me. Project Youth I've already seen twice and it hasn't worked. Wilshere and Ramsey was 2.0. 1.0 before that was Van Persie and Fabregas. So to be told that we're now Project Youth 3.0 with Saka, Smith Rowe and Martinelli might look great, but let's just hope in 4 years' time they don't go to Newcastle City United like Sanchez did, like Fabregas did, like Van Persie did, because we've already been there. That would be a waste for me. When I look at what's happened on the pitch, I think there's been some huge errors in the last 2.5 years. For the first half year, I gave Arteta credit. I said it's got a free hit for me, and whatever happens at the end of this season, we're in such a mess because of the way that we've been left by Arsene Wenger, even Gazidis, and in some cases Unai Emery. He's got the half the season to show me what he can do, and he won us an FA Cup. And I remember I listened to a voice note the other day, believe it or not, that I sent to Claude. So we were doing a tribute show, and I was looking at some voice notes that me and him had put to each other. And you wouldn't believe the voice note I sent him. I said, this guy looks like he's got something. He's won an FA Cup. He looks like he's got something about him. I like what he's saying in press conferences. And I give him quite a lot of credit. It was quite funny listening to myself back, thinking, wow, how different was I back then? Then we went into the season of 2020 in COVID, and we went through that horrendous losses. Loss at home, and I thought, right, I'm done then. I can't see any more of this. We've been left behind. It's not working. We've got to go and try and get someone to save our season. We had Thomas Tuchel available. We didn't go for him. Frank Lampard left in 9th position. They went and won a Champions League and got top 4 because they had an elite manager. And I thought, why did we not do that? But we stuck with this guy. I was questioning it all throughout. And I thought, don't you dare lose to Unai Emery, because that will be your nail in your coffin. He lost to Unai Emery. The guy was still here. I was done. I thought, no, I can't sit there and watch this anymore. This is madness. What is actually happening here? Questioning his decisions, playing Xhaka at left back, Partey in the middle on his own, leaving us very vulnerable in midfield. But we kept with him. We missed out. We come 8th again. We loved an 8th place, and it looked to me as if 8th place was acceptable. And 8th place has never, for me, been acceptable. So, of course, I still have my question marks. We went into the summer. He was given 150 million, and I thought to myself, okay, let's see what we can do in this summer. I actually quite liked the summer recruitment. I gave Arteta and Edu a lot of praise, in my opinion, for who they'd brought in. I was happy with a lot of the signings. When we got to the first 3 games and we'd not really set ourselves up right, I thought, okay, this guy is bottom of the league and just needs another couple of losses and he'll have to go. At that time, there was Antonio Conte who was sniffing around. The Inter Milan situation wasn't looking too good. And I thought we needed somebody elite like that to pull us out of the dirt, because that's where we were, bottom of the league. Then we started to pick up a few results, and I thought, okay, convince me that you can go on a run now. But we couldn't. We tripped up again to Liverpool. We lost to Everton. We lost to Manchester United. And I thought, how many more games does this guy have to lose again before we start questioning him again? Of course, he goes on a nice little run again. So all the times I was starting to say, okay, convincing me. Oh, now you've gone and lost 3 games in a row again. He did it again. We got dumped out to Forest. We got dumped out to Liverpool. And I thought to myself, why are we seeing this all of a sudden? Question marks. The transfer window's open. Go and sign someone. We went out to Forest. We went out to Liverpool because we had no players. We had COVID. But the transfer window was still open. We were selling more players. I didn't understand it. I thought the lack of experience was showing. I thought it would come back to bite them. Then we went on a nice little convincing run, and I thought to myself, okay, you're lucky at the moment. It's not coming back to bite you. And then it did. We lost to Palace. We lost to Southampton. We lost to Brighton. And if it wasn't for Tottenham and Man United being the bottle jobs that they've been this season, we wouldn't even be talking about top 4 right now. We wouldn't even be talking about Europe, to be fair. But we are, because of the teams around us that have been bottling their games just like we did around times of the season. Since 2022, I would say I've probably been given Arteta the most praise that I have. And the reason I've done that is because I've seen something different on the pitch. I've seen a system. I've seen something that's now working. I've had an understanding of our style of play, which I've questioned for 2 years and still stand by should not take 2 years. But it's now there. I understand it. I can see what he's trying to do, at least. I had question marks over the lot replacing Aubameyang, and I thought it would come back to bite us. And maybe it could do. But at the moment, it's certainly getting away with it in terms of goals by committee. But having said all of that, and having my doubts and concerns and not being convinced by what I'm seeing in parts of the last 2.5 years, what I will say, and what I cannot have any Arsenal fan or any Arteta out fan that says that they do not believe that they've seen progress, is just wrong. because there has been progress. 100% there's been progress. Not just in the league, but actually by some of the style of play, some of the players that we've seen that have improved, and some of the telepathy between the fans and the players and the coach, to be fair, has definitely improved. And when you go to games, you can't deny that that's not there. So when people say they haven't seen progress still, I kind of question where you're going with that, because I have seen progress and I've not been convinced 100%. If he gets us into the Champions League, he's done something I did not think he could do. Now, I think this team are good enough for the Champions League, and I think they've probably proved that they're there or thereabouts. I didn't think this guy was, though. I had no doubt in my mind that this guy was going to finish below, outside of the European places, 7th or 8th again, even with this side, because I didn't see enough from him in the last 2.5 years to say that there was any evidence to show that he was the right guy to take us forward. Now, what I like is when people can prove me wrong. Martin Odegaard's done that this season. In 2021, when we had him, I thought, he looks all right. Everybody was loving this guy, and I thought, I don't think he's going to take us forward. Boy, was I wrong. A lot of the fan base have been wrong with a couple of players. Tomiyasu, who the hell's that? Ramsdale, he sucks. Both of those guys have been two of our best players, proving people wrong. If Mikel Arteta gets in the top 4, I will eat that humble pie because I was wrong. So, Mikel, if you get us across the line at the North London Derby, or if you get us into the top 4 or the Champions League spot next season, I'll hold my hands up, I'll say fair play, and I'll back you 100%, which, to be fair, I've done anyway, because I have been at every game, home and away this season, cheering on the boys. But I'll back you 100% if you get us Champions League football. Why? Because I believe that is something that you did not have no chance of getting. What I'm seeing is an amazing telepathy between the fans, the connect, and the players. I like what the manager says in terms of where he wants to take us. And I am ambitious. Yeah, I think he is too. I think, unfortunately, there's being ambitious and there's being realistic, which people might look at. And the last thing I'll say, as for being a flip-flop, the Judges gets it. I've had it before. Sophie's had it. Ask yourself this. Is Man City one of the best teams in the league at the moment? Yes. Were they in 2004? No. So you must be a flip-flop then, because now you don't think they are. All of us are flip-flops. 1 minute we're winning, 1 minute we're losing. We don't think we're great, then we do think we're great. It's football. That's what happens. Everybody can change their opinion. If you get to a situation where you think that you have a right to win stuff, obviously you're wrong. If you feel that you should be wanting to demand the best, I think that is absolutely fine by me. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. So that's where I stand. We get top 4. I'll say fair play Mikel Arteta, and I'll 100% back going into a summer, which is going to be massive, by the way, in terms of recruitment, to then push on. It's not job done. It's not Jay from the in-between has completed it, mate. Top 4 is just the beginning. We then need to go into the pushing as far as we can next season to a title challenge towards Liverpool and City. Hell, do I think we're going to win the league next season? Absolutely not. But if we can get into between 6 to 9 points of Liverpool and Man City, I will see huge progression towards this team and this football club. So that's what I've got to try and get behind. Fair play. I think I can take a breath now. Judges, I'm going to go around and take a little bit of a team score predictions on this one. For Thursday, and I hate doing this on this game, but I'm going to go first, and I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw. That's what I think is going to happen. I'd love to say we'd win, but I think it's going to be 1-1. I think it's going to be nervy. I think it's going to be cagey. I think it's going to be absolutely horrible. It's going to be like going to the doctors or the dentist. You just want it over so you can move on and relax and breathe. Judges, what's your thoughts on the score prediction on Thursday night, my friend?
I'll take a 1-1, but I've got a sneaky feeling that we might just nick this. So I'm going to go them down the road 1, Arsenal 2.
Love the optimism. Sophie?
I don't know why, but I feel very calm about this game. And I think that's because the onus and the pressure has shifted gears from us to them. And I actually think there's going to be a few goals in this, and there might be a couple of mistakes. I fancy us against their wing-backs, Arsenal Football Club 3, Tottenham 2.
Oh, what a cracker that would be as well. Tom Canton, final say.
You see, now I do know exactly how I feel, and it's blooming nervous about this game. I hate the derby. It fills me with such dread so much because the idea of losing it is so horrible. But That is why I have to predict a victory. And I think, we can come away with a win. First win since 2014. I'm going with a Lee Judges special and saying a 2-1 to the Arsenal. So lovely stuff.
I hope you three are right and that I am wrong, because it would be so sweet to win at their place and just make them miserable even more so. I will say, this is not the biggest North London derby. I will reiterate that. This is not the biggest North London derby in history. I still feel 18 years ago when we won the title there is bigger. And I'd actually say that there was a North London derby a couple of times where we were going towards titles against Leicester that season, and obviously Lasagna Gate, which we all remember very well. That season was obviously massive as well. But this one, of course, is big, and we'll both want to win it. Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure, to be honest, talking to you three. I'm glad that you're back with your Wi-Fi with us, so thank you so much for coming on. How can people follow you and your content when you're not sounding like a Dalek, please?
Come and visit me and Super Kevin Campbell over at Highbury Squad across all social platforms. Come hang out with us. And remember, never forget, when the chips have been down, we've won 2 titles at White Hart Lane. To add the Champions League to that and kick them right in the stomach, be lovely.
It would be beautiful. Do you know what Graham said the other day on the team talk? He said, I just like to always say that they've won 2 league titles. We've won 2 league titles at their ground. Plus, we've won 13 in total. And that does make me laugh. And I do like to have people to remind us that and remind them that as well. Sophie, always a pleasure having you on, mate. And thanks for joining over from Cyprus. Tom Canton, thank you, mate. Always a pleasure. How can people follow you at 6:30 in the morning when you're on Talk?
It's actually a little bit earlier than that. No, I'm 8 a.m. every day, nearly every day. You can join me doing all the latest Arsenal news catch-ups. We did a really good show earlier on today with Ben Jacobs from CBS Sports. He gave us some really good insights on, the Tielemans situation, and also how Gabriel Jesus doesn't actually seem that likely, and how Tottenham are currently leading the race for Raheem Sterling as well. So some very interesting bombshells were dropped during that show. So make sure you go and check that out. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. as usual. Thanks for having me as always, guys and lads, mate. I should say. Sophie's one of the lads now. So
yeah, she's one of the lads now. Tom, always a pleasure. And do you know what? That is some interesting transfer news as well with Ben as well. And Ben's good as well, so that is very interesting. Just before you both go, Max has said, hey Dan, can I just say that this show and the Highbury Squad and the Gooner Talk has blown up over here in Australia in the last month. Keep up the amazing work, guys. P.S. I've been worried about Spurs, not worried about Spurs all week. Thank you for that, Max. Much appreciated for watching all of our content with all the guys on here. Thank you so much. Lee Judges, always a pleasure, man. I know we're nervous. I know we want to get it over and done with, but I'm kind of looking forward to it just because of it's massive. But me and you will be on here tomorrow with some Tottenham fans to discuss the North London Derby preview. And I must say, Judge, and I didn't want to bring this up, we're not going to go into it, but I hate combined 11s. I cannot stand combined 11s when I'm seeing these Spurs fans putting in Kulusevski ahead of Saka and Lloris ahead of Ramsdale. I can't understand some of it, mate. I can't lie. It is very bizarre how these work. A combined 11 team actually ends up weaker than the Arsenal side, in my opinion. It's very, very bizarre. But there we go. That is that. Judges, anything you want to say lastly before we wrap up?
No. Just always enjoy our chats. And listen, massive game on Thursday. Let's get the job done. We can do it.
Up the Arsenal. Guys, listen, we're going to be back tomorrow night. Make sure you join us 9 p.m. It'll be myself, Lee, and some Tottenham fans to debate it. And then, of course, we've got the big game Thursday, so I'm sure we'll be back to review that game also. Until then, up the Arsenal. Take care of yourself and each other. We'll see you soon.